Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Factorio Space Exploration. We are in space. We got the beginnings of our space base in place. Time to use our space base to build more base in space. Oh, wait, sorry, hang on. To build more base
in space.
And since we're in space, we've got a lot of space for our base. I think we can spread out more or less as far as we want to in any direction. We've got a lot of things to build, and the machines in space are huge, and I don't exactly have a good feeling for how much space we're gonna need in space for our space base place. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna make a big flat platform somewhere just so I can have a place in space to do some tinkering, brainstorming, figure out layouts, decide how far apart to space different sections of our space base. So we'll need to extend the rail, make a train stop, and then of course make all the robots do the heavy lifting. So we got a space train full of space platform. Let's take it to the platform spot. Let's turn on the train, go make our platform. We're going to make a copy of our solar panel blueprint, just like that. And all we're gonna do is get rid of the solar panels, but otherwise it'll be exactly the same. We can also change this icon so I can see which one it is at a glance. There we go. Okay, and then we need to line up the power poles. There we are. So occasionally I'll have to restamp the blueprint so the robots know where to put the roboports, but besides that, they can get to work building this platform, and while they do so, we actually need to head back to the surface because I forgot an alternate recipe we have access to. And since we're going back to the surface, I think I'll take some of this raw homonite ore with me. We're not going to take a full cargo rocket, we'll just nab one of these space capsules, and it's got a trunk there. We'll fill it up with the raw homonite. Sooner or later, all this raw homonite will end up back down at the base, get turned into homonite bars or plates or whatever, and get sent back up here into space. I think that's all we need. I dumped all of my spacey things, my space belts, space pipes, space machines. Let's go back to the surface. Leaving space. Again. Zoom. So the new recipe we have access to is a better version of lubricant. Lubricant ordinarily takes 10 heavy oil to make 10 lubricant, 1 heavy oil to 1 lubricant. The new recipe uses cryonite slush and only needs 1 heavy oil to make 10 lubricant, so it's 10 times more efficient in terms of the oil. Until we set up more of the space base, we're not using much petroleum gas, which is bottlenecking our production of lubricant, so this is a good thing to do now. We're also making cryonite slush right over here to freeze our water into ice to send it up into space. So this is a pretty convenient spot just to the right of our oil processing center to do this. One other thing we can do now that we couldn't do before is we can clear up some of this space by replacing, man, every time I say space, I just want to rhyme it with something. We can clear up some of the space, get rid of some of these substations, and put in, let's see, put in some of these pylon substations instead. So we don't have to work around these substations, we can just get rid of them. So here's the total amount of machines we need for the new lubricant recipe. It is more efficient, but it's also a lot slower. Old recipe, 1 second crafting time. New recipe, 5-second crafting time. You can also go ahead and get rid of the lubricant production in our oil refining area. So there's not enough space in this little pocket that we're going to put our new lubricant production in to have all of these lubricant producers in one big long string like we've done in the oil refining. So the next best option is probably to do 2 rows. And that seems to mostly line up with the cryonite slush production. We also have 2 different fluid ingredients for each of these chemical plants. So something I've done in the past which has worked is offsetting one row, one space from the other row, and then trying to link them up. So we can do something like this, link them up, and create a chain. And we'll do a similar thing going the other direction. We'll create a little module with a few chemical plants and then copy it over to the rest of the machines. Let's move these guys out of the way for now. So we've linked up lubricant and the cryonite slush. Let's try to link up the heavy oil. Since these guys are probably going to be going down this way, we're going to connect up the lubricant there. We'll need to extend as far as we can. Let's just put it way out here for now. Let's do that. So maybe the heavy oil would be in a vertical line like this. And already I've detected a problem in the plan. This underground pipe and this underground pipe, two different materials in the same column. What if instead we offset the front row of chemical plants in the other direction? We'd have to use the other lubricant output. See if that works. And I think that pattern is going to work. I also made it a little bit more compact, took the spaces out. The lubricant is getting collected here in this vertical section of pipe. Heavy oil is in this vertical section of pipe, and then the cyanide slush is over here on this vertical section of pipe. Ordinarily, you don't want to create a very long straight line of pipe like this. If you're trying to push a fluid from one end to the other, you're going to have a lot of problems with throughput that way because you lose throughput with every additional segment you add, but that's not actually what we're doing. We're going left to right, not top to bottom. We're adding to this pipe very regularly, and we are taking from the pipe very regularly as well. So what this thing does, it just acts as sort of a balancer between all these different machines. We're also doing it in this oil refining area, and it works perfectly fine as long as you're adding to it and taking from it very regularly. Next thing to figure out is the beacon coverage. We've got a beacon right there. And with space exploration, you can only have one beacon hitting any one machine. If you have more than one, it shuts down the machines. So it's actually a little bit finicky. And I've actually noticed that these machines here on the very right don't actually have a beacon. This one, and this one are not getting hit by beacons. So we need to move the lubricant build over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. There's another beacon right here, which is hitting most of the machines. But the only thing these guys are handling is the ice, and I think we can just move these ones over. There's nothing over here right now, so we can just shift those over as much as we need to, and this belt, we can probably shift that over too, no problem. So here's the finished build in action. I added some tanks here to store up heavy oil, and I also changed the recipes on these oil refineries, at least temporarily, to a recipe that favors heavy oil more than the others. We're still backing up on the petroleum gas, so just to observe it in action, we can flush this system of 30,000 or so petroleum gas. Let's see, what color is the smoke? We got some nice blue, lovely cotton candy smoke. We've got some, what is that? It's like a dirty peach. It's like a peach covered in ash from the volcano that just exploded. We're also making some sulfuric acid right down here. Previously, that was coming in with a barrel from logistics robots. Now we're just bringing in the iron plates, which reduces the logistics demands on the base by a really tiny amount, but an amount. I also beefed up this yellow belt carrying cyanide rods to a blue belt all the way back to the source, and I got 3 belts coming through here and rerouted them along this way, added a balancer, reworked a little bit how they were getting added to the belt. But with this finished, I think it's time to head back into space to work on our space base and check out our platform place. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Space. Space is a place. Space is a place where our platform is placed. So, we're back in space, and the robots are putting the finishing touches on the space platform because I forgot to update the blueprint a few times. While they're doing that, let's head over here to an even smaller space platform, a place in space where we can look at all the different stuff we gotta make in space for our space base. These are a bunch of combinators with all the different recipes and sciencey things and intermediate products we have to make in order to finish this mod pack. So the overall goal is to do science in space, and this mod pack has a ton of different science packs. Here's all of them. We've already done these over here. The vanilla ones are on the ground ready to go whenever we rebuild the science area. This one will have to rebuild this space science. And then we've got 5 different space science types. This one up here, we're not going to do right now. This is deep space science. This is the end game of the mod pack. We'll worry about this when we get to it, one thing at a time. And then down here we have what appears to be a ridiculous... Oh, okay, autosave. Interrupt my flow, thanks. What was I saying? Yeah, okay. Down here, let me start over. Back up here, reset, and scene. And down here we have what appears to be a ridiculous amount of recipes, and yes, we have to build every single one of these to get through the different science packs. There's 4 different space sciences, well, 5 if you include deep space science. There's material science, energy science, astronomic science, and biological science, but there is a pattern to each one of these that streamlines things quite a bit. Every one of these different science packs has 4 different experiments we have to do. Each of those 4 experiments will take data chips, or whatever they're called, blank data cards. They'll often take some kind of thermofluid or one of these other intermediate products. You do those 4 experiments, and then you get a material catalog. That material catalog gets you a material insight. The material insight, as well as the data catalog, as well as this guy, the significant data, will get you the actual science pack. You have to make the significant data with the insight. Here they are in the tech tree. We'll initially make significant data from 1 insight, then we'll get a recipe that lets us do it with 2, and then 3, and then finally 4, and this one that uses all 4 is the most efficient. So each of these types of science has 4 tiers. Every tier has 4 experiments. Every experiment has a catalog. Every catalog makes an insight. Then you need significant data, and then you get a science pack. But before we can make any of that stuff, we gotta make all this stuff, the intermediary stuff. We've got some cotton candy, some different flavored soda, some crinkled up paper, and then we've got some computer chips in various states of disrepair, and then we've got the funny thermometers. So down here, I laid them all out and tried to make reference of what kind of stuff we're gonna need from a rocket ship and what kind of stuff is gonna be delivered via train from different areas of the base. So the significant data will be entirely train-based. For instance, we'll be getting the insight. I keep forgetting the names of these things. I'm just going to call it juice box. We're going to get the yellow computer chip from the different juice boxes. Going to arrive via train in space in our space base. So the computer chips are mostly from our rocket ships as well, but we need to get the orange soda, the chemical gel from a train, and we'll also be recycling quite a bit of the junk data cards back into normal data cards, and then this guy gets recycled into scrap, which gets turned into landfill for now anyway. Then we got the thermofluid, mostly from rocket ships from our ground base, not our space base, but we also need the cosmic water. And one of the advantages of laying things out like this is we might find out that we don't need to deliver this stuff via train. So the cosmic water is made with the lubricant and ice, but we're already going to be sending lubricant and ice to our thermofluid area, so we'll probably just end up making that locally instead of delivering that via train. Then over here we got some stuff we don't have to worry about yet because we still don't have the Vitamelange going. This is biosludge. We'll be recycling some stuff like contaminated biosludge and contaminated cosmic water. Like all the other stuff we recycle, we want to use the recycled stuff before the new stuff so the whole process doesn't shut down. And then here's another one we don't need to make just yet, but we want to lay all this stuff out to be ready for it when we do want it. This is nutrient gel. It takes this, which we also don't have, methane gas, and it takes the biosludge and the orange soda and the blue soda. Then we got the different cotton candies, and they take this stuff entirely delivered via rocket ship. So all these guys is what we need to go to the big platform we just had the robots make and figure out how much space all that stuff is going to take up.
Approximately 10 hours later.
So from combinators with icons on them to a platform full of stuff, our space-based platform place is covered in builds. Let's take a look at them briefly, and then we're going to move them to different places. Not sure exactly where yet, but we're going to move them somewhere in space for our space base, so we can start making these intermediate products and then eventually start making science again. That's the goal. Over here we've got the significant data getting made with the juice boxes and thermofluid coming in and out laterally. And then we take the significant data and we're also going to have some recycled blank data chips as some, or data cards, whatever, as a byproduct. Those are going out vertically. We'll have to have a train stop for each of these things. Over here we've got the blank data cards getting made from scratch, mostly getting delivered via rocket ship, except for the orange soda getting delivered via pipe right there. Tried to do as much direct insertion as possible so we have as few things on belts as possible, and we're not using any logistics robots at all. Then down here we've got the recycling of our junk data cards into blank data cards and also a chance to get broken data cards. I think we'll also get better versions of this over time where we'll have a higher percent chance to get blank data cards, lower percent chance to get broken data cards. Like the other build with the supercomputers, we're bringing in ingredients from the left to the right and the thermofluid from the left to the right, and we're taking things out going up and down so we can fit as many stack inserters and filter stack inserters around these guys as possible. Just beneath them is a whole bunch of recyclers that are going to turn the broken data cards into scrap, and then that scrap will get turned into landfill. The landfill will put in a depot somewhere and occasionally shoot an atomic bomb at it. Technically, you can recycle scrap into small amounts of ore, but ore is not really hard to get in this mod pack, so I don't understand the whole point of it. It seems very annoying, and I don't want to even deal with it, so we're just going to make landfill and occasionally blow it up. Then down here, we've got our thermofluid section, which is getting made entirely from rocket landing pads, I think. Like the other area with the landing pads, trying to do as much direct insertion as possible to remove putting things on belts, not using any logistics robots. This sulfuric acid build takes up a lot of space, but we're in space. We got tons of space. We have infinite space in space, so who cares? We're using a similar system to make sure our recycled thermofluid for each different tier gets used up before we make fresh thermofluid and inject it into the system. So we just changed the number and the amount of tanks that it's hooked up to for this bigger system. If we've got less than 20,000, we can always change this number to whatever we want, basically. But if there's less than 20,000 in the combination of these 4 tanks, then it will allow fresh thermofluid in. If there's more than 20,000, it'll shut it down. We're going to get pretty soon a new version of thermal radiator, which will upgrade this guy as well. I've also decided to start recycling all of our barrels into steel because barrels only stack to 10 and steel stacks to 100, so it'll be a lot easier to transport around through the base, as well as sending back to Nalvis in a rocket. So the point of this space base platform place was to know how big these layouts were to tinker with the layouts. Now that that is mostly done, I think we can start actually building more space base.
Six hours later.
Well, look at that. It's a fully designed and built thermofluid area, floating in space, connected via rail to the rest of our space base, designed in the space base platform place. I actually realized I made a pretty big mistake in the space base platform place and had to redesign most of it. Without going too much into boring spreadsheet details, I've got 2 different sets of numbers for the thermofluid. I've got one set of numbers for the base 25C thermofluid here that we're making from scratch. And then up at the top, the coldest thermofluid, I got another set of numbers, because this stuff does not get recycled, or rather, it recycles into the warm 25C stuff. So the vast majority of our 25C thermofluid is actually going to come via train from other parts of the base that is getting recycled from the colder thermofluid. Most of it's going to be coming in via here, not via here. And the numbers I was looking at when I designed this was just for the startup thermofluid, not for how much we would need at the top end, or the cold end, I guess you could say. So anyway, had to redesign it. It's much bigger and beefier now. It's got way more pipes, way more machines, way more tanks. I think we can turn everything on and make sure that it's working. I've jammed up all of the different landing pads with some space platform. I think if we just run around and scoop it all up, we should get some cascading rockets delivering their supplies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, that looks right. Okay, here we go. This should look pretty cool. Still need a sound effect for that. I can't believe that's silent. I know we're in space and stuff, but all the other machines are making noise, so theoretically, the rocket landing should make noise too. So we got some iron plates and some petroleum making some sulfuric acid. We don't need a ton of this stuff, so these guys are going to take a long time to empty out. That's okay, just a big buffer chest in space. We got some ice here making a bunch of water super duper fast. I guess that's why these things have the huge buffer, so they can hold a lot internally. Wow, look at it go. We're also making some cyanide slush because we're using the cyanide slush more efficient recipe up at the colder end, at the top end of the build. We got some lubricant here making the, wow, making this stuff cosmic water. Here's the cyanide rods. And then the heavy oil, making the thermofluid super duper fast. Oh my gosh, this is the base 25C thermofluid. And we're using that circuit condition that I talked about previously. This number we might change because the amount of tanks has gotten larger. Most of our 25C will eventually come from different parts of the base. I've added a whole bunch of train stops here. We may not actually need this many, but I wanted to make sure we had enough to future-proof it, just to make sure. So since we're only getting the startup 25C thermofluid, these guys are not going to be fully saturated. We're not getting the recycled thermofluid yet. That'll take a while to get going. We got to build other parts of the base first. So this guy is not even doing anything. That's expected. This is where the negative 10C is getting stored in this tank. We've got a similar circuit condition on some of these guys. I know I'm making a bunch of smoke with my jetpack, so it's hard to see a little bit. But we got some circuit conditions on the pumps coming from the fresh negative 10C production. And then when it gets recycled, a train shows up right here, and we'll inject it directly into these tanks. And when we need it elsewhere, another train can show up here and take it directly out of the tanks. Otherwise, it goes up here to get turned into negative 100C. Here's the cyanide slush coming up the right. And then we're also recycling some 25C that goes back down to the 25C area. And these guys are also not getting fully saturated because we don't have that recycling going on yet. We've got to build other parts of the base first. It's still, oh yeah, it's doing some stuff. It's pretty good. All right, we got some tanks for these guys. We don't receive any of the negative 100C as a recycled product. It gets recycled as a 25C product, or I guess maybe sometimes as negative 10C. So there's no circuit condition necessary here. We just put it in the tank and it gets loaded onto a train when necessary, or otherwise it proceeds upwards to the final form. Negative 273C absolute zero, pretty much. Wow, that's making pretty good too. That's going pretty fast. It's filling up. These guys are about 20% full already. And since this is as cold as it's gonna get, we just have a simple train unloading stop. This is the end of the line. Looks like it's working. Wow, I didn't have to fix anything. That's amazing. At least I haven't noticed anything yet. Oh, also, got a train line here to pick up the steel beams to get recycled, sent back to the surface. And then we got our rocket stuff here. No train set up yet, so they're just gonna sit on the belt for now.
A few moments later.
But after spending a few minutes setting up some infrastructure, we do have a place for the trains to go, so let's set up the trains. We'll need a 1-2-1 here and a 1-2-1 there. We're going to give them fuel at the nexus, these trains in particular. The other trains, I'm not sure. Oh, wait a second, this is the wrong spot. Okay, we need a double header. We need to give them a little bit of fuel. They'll receive more fuel at the nexus. And I guess I could adjust their colors and stuff too. We've got the train stops already set up, and I've started using these symbols, which is kind of neat. Never really done that before. That's been a feature for a pretty long time. First time I've actually used it. So we tell them to pick up stuff until their cargo is full, then they go to the drop-off spots, and they do it until their cargo is empty. We do the same thing for the steel train, thermofluid, steel pickup, full cargo. Then we want the nexus, steel drop, empty cargo. And I think we can go and tell both to get the hell out of here, although neither of them are full, so they're just going to sit here. Well, that's anticlimactic, isn't it? So anyway, the thermofluid is totally up and running, should be good to go for the remainder of the playthrough. As far as I'm aware, we've got a big platform. We can mess with designs and take things from there and paste them in other places. Next time, we'll do all of the different circuit chip stuff, get that up and running, and the rest of the intermediates, and then we'll start rebuilding science. That's going to do it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments below. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.